Can everyone see my screen?
We can.
All right, so before I get into how we use Yammer, I'm just spend a little bit of time just kind of giving a quick background on who we are and how big we are. So Accenture is a consulting firm that's stretched across the globe. We have about over 600,000 employees across 50 different countries. So we're pretty huge, and we continue to grow. In our technology landscape, we have all sorts of different tech that we use. So we have stuff that's hosted on the cloud. Obviously, we have M365 products that we consume. And although we're very platform heavy, we also have a lot of custom apps that we've developed in the space. The point here is that we are much more than just a Microsoft shop. We're spread across every single technology you can possibly think of. So integrating with Yammer presents somewhat of a challenge, but at the same time makes it fun. And we're not starting from scratch here in terms of social networking. Just over 10 years ago, we built our own custom social networking application that's called the Stream. It's been well received by our employees. It's embedded in the 300 plus internal applications that we have to support the business. Not only the social feed itself is embedded, but every time you come across an asset on an application, like an internal article or a knowledge asset, all the comments, likes, and share underneath that asset is tied into Stream. So a year ago, we've started our journey of moving from Stream to Yammer. Stream was, at the time, kind of cutting edge. It was fairly new. As I said before, well received by our business customers, but it's kind of approaching end of life. And the functionality that's been added to Yammer over the last couple of years kind of triggered us, okay, it's time for us to make that jump, move away from our custom build application, and let's focus on something that's platform heavy. So we started that journey about a year ago, and it's been really good so far. So every month we see kind of just uptake in terms of our active users, active groups, and we continue to get positive feedback.
So, and I want to share something to provide some context to this number too. So 38% growth over the last quarter is pretty phenomenal. But I want to point out, in March, when we started our efforts around adoption, our typical monthly or daily active users was 25,000. So we're talking about a 20 to 25x gain in just 9 months. So it's been a huge uptake of this platform, and it's been, I mean, for us, just like it's incredible to see from last year at this time when no one knew what this was in our firm to, seeing it as kind of one of the, the crucial tools that a lot of our leaders are using now is pretty incredible. And similarly, like we've seen the same growth around active groups and activity, number of posts. I still think from number of we still see a very small vocal minority number of people who are posting regularly, which I think is pretty typical for a social platform. But we thought it would be fun to just start with the punchline here and share, like how, where we are and the great success we've had, and then talk a little bit about actually how we got there. Wayne, anything you want to call out from a numbers perspective too?
No, I think what I would like to say on this is that we've seen the increase in Yammer, and like we want to see, we see a decrease in their custom app, the Stream being usage. So we're almost there where Yammer is the go-to versus our own custom built Stream. That's the only thing I want to add to that.
Yeah. So and it's great to see that drawdown of our old custom platforms, and I think our adoption has far surpassed what our previous platform was too, given the incredible capabilities that Yammer has. And so, Wayne shared, exactly how many, I think my dog wants to join the call too, but how many people we have in our company, over 600,000 people. And so to target that, and obviously we don't have a massive team to target people individually, But we started with kind of a broad awareness campaign, especially around leadership, to sell them on the concept and the value of this and where it fits in. Because, the first thing that I hear from people when we talk about Yammer, which has been around at Accenture for quite a while, I think, Wayne, it's been around for 5 years, 10 years, a very long time,
Yes,
very little. And so when we would talk to people about Yammer, they're like, why Yammer? Like, what is the point of this? We already have Teams to collaborate with people. We have email to communicate. So why do we need to add another tool? So we created a lot of broad messaging for people to sell them on this. And then we identified the key influencers who got really excited about that message and could really, that had that futuristic mentality of like, here's how I can adopt this with my team. And get them excited about it, and then use that excitement, especially at the executive level, to bring people in, because they had a lot of influence within their network and within their reports. And so for our team, it was important to spend a lot of one-on-one focused white glove time with those leaders who got really excited about this, to make sure that their move to this new platform was a partnership, so that they didn't kind of, a lot of time people get excited, they get stuck on something, because there's always challenges when you're adopting a new platform, even when it's a new tool. And we evolved a lot of our thinking in terms of how people use and manage communities based on these conversations. And so it was really crucial for us to provide that white glove care for a lot of these big communities. We just recently, within the last 2 weeks, launched our all North America community within Yammer, which I think, Wayne, we have 60,000 people in that community. Yep. It was a big undertaking, because our North America lead, obviously that's crucial for them, how they communicate with their people, and getting them to get from understanding it to actually moving over there just took a leap of faith on their part, but also like the confidence that they had support. And so we're evolving our artifacts for those groups as we continue these conversations on how you manage engagement with your community, because and we'll go to the next slide, because it actually presents a lot of new capabilities for us, and this is what has got people excited. Leadership voice, like we've all seen Outlook kind of become email wallpaper for us over time. Like if you're like me, you get 100 emails a day. The stuff that comes from leaders, it just gets ignored because there's so much you're trying to process otherwise. And you may think to go back to it later, but it never really happens. But for leaders, the value for them is being able to actually use that platform and interact with people. I use the example of our North America community, and he might send out an email to 60,000 people. How many people, even at my level, would respond to him or ask him a question or interact with him? It really just wouldn't happen. And the analogy I like to use for this, especially for the value for leaders, is it's kind of like a virtual break room, in terms of the formality of it. Like email, it's very rigid, very formal. Teams, same thing. Like you don't want to interrupt someone's flow of work. But with Yammer, if someone posts something on Yammer, it's right there for you to respond. And culturally, people have that muscle from Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn, to respond to leaders when they're interacting with people. And so for them, it's actually a great way to develop personal connections below like their direct reports. Because as we've seen since COVID started, it just made us more isolated in terms of our networks, and this has allowed them to break out of that a bit. And they've actually made their posts very personal, which has been great, because they've really bought into that new medium, and we've really encouraged them to not make things overproduced and just kind of write as they would want to share their messages. From a support community perspective, we use that the platform that Wayne was discussing for support previously wasn't super well adopted. And if again, a company our size, any of you who've tried to manage anything at scale for support, it gets really tough to provide support for edge cases and challenges that people are having that just don't make sense. So we do have a lot of communities that are focused around specific tools or platforms or organizations where people can reach out and get even community-driven support. So there's anything with our Ask CIO community, someone will create a question that's just a very random thing that might be happening in Teams. Someone else might have seen that and solved it already. And so leveraging that 600,000 person network of people who have already, learned things that we in CIO can't possibly know, really helps to save not only the cost of supporting people, but actually provide a much better support experience for people as they're going through that. Sorry, Wayne, can you go back to the next slide? In one of the, oh no, sorry, one more down. There you go. So,
that's the last one.
With the table. So for networks and organizations, yeah, this one. This has actually been a really cool one too. So we have groups that will have launched a page that can share thought leadership and engage with their people. One other big thing that I'm working on right now is around our adoption of Power Platform. And so we have this group of, this community of practice around citizen development. And so again, like we didn't really know how to reach 600,000 people to find out who's really interested in learning how to do low code, no code. But, through Yammer, we were able to target a pretty significant population that's grown to well over 1,000 people now. Again, if you've all used Power Platform, it's such a powerful platform that our support teams can't possibly know the answers to all these challenges people are having. So they use that as a way to kind of upskill each other, ask questions and get them solved. And that has been a wildly successful community with tons of engagement, because that's the stuff that people really want, that are really interested in. From a work perspective, it's not their core team that they're working on like you would interact with in Teams, but it's a way to ask, experts and peers questions. And then, also, within your community itself, whether it be, for us, CIO or our consulting communities, being able to connect with functional leaders and experts and see thought leadership in their space. And then finally, like the reason to get people out there a lot of times is just special interest groups. It's the stuff that's fun as part of your day. We have, groups on Peloton. The one thing that we used to joke about when we first started this effort is the most active community on Yammer when we first started this was the Accenture Photography Club. It's a very, very active community where people have, many, many posts a day sharing the pictures they're taking. They've got like these fun, gamified like contests and stuff going on. And every time someone would join Yammer at first, that was their news feed, was all the Accenture photography stuff. But that's the type of thing that gets people out there when they find, not only their work interest, but their personal interest. Because if you're like me, if you're in a meeting and you want to scroll through something because you're listening to Wayne talk about support for Yammer, and it's not the thing, you want to, go through something that's fun, and Yammer, it gets you out there to check it out. So those are really the fourth use cases we rallied around and started to identify those influencers in each of those spaces. And by providing them that level of like high touch support, it's really started to kind of gain momentum on its own. And so we've really found ourselves now pivoting a little bit to thinking about how we provide guidance to these people as they're now, getting their own ideas and how they're using Yammer. Because, in the past, like if you think about support organizations or networks, like they've never really managed, a social media presence. It's a skill that very few people have. And so it's something that we've been evolving within our team in terms of how you, for example, like the research Microsoft shared with us, to successful communities that tend to stay engaged have at least 20 posts per month from users and 20 interactions per month from moderators. And for us, it's like, okay, now that is a target, a number that we can drive to and something we can coach people with, because we understand that like if people go out to Yammer and check out a community, and they do that a few times and don't see anything new, it's probably not going to hold their attention. But if it's every day they're scrolling through at the same time and they're seeing new interesting things, that's going to hold their attention. And so we're evolving ideas like that over time, which does build our overall internal culture and even things that you think about, etiquette within Teams or etiquette within Outlook. Like we all have a pretty, I think, deep understanding of like when you should or shouldn't email someone, or if someone's a do not disturb, you shouldn't send them an IM. But those are kind of rules that we're still charting out within Yammer. And I think that's kind of a lot of the value that we've started to pivot to now that we've seen, I think we're around 75 or 80% of our company has adopted this platform. So, but yeah, I know. So I think we're a few minutes earlier than we had anticipated, but I think if we want, we can start to take questions. Unless Wayne, if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think we can jump into the breakout room.